Welcome back to another episode of the 2 Dates in a Dash podcast. I'm your host, Matt Cubbler. On today's episode, I interview Robert Raymond Riopel, who is one of the top speaker trainers in the world and the author of Success Left a Clue. Now sit back and relax and enjoy this episode of the 2 Dates in a Dash podcast. What is up, podcast land? Welcome to another episode of the 2 Dates in a Dash podcast. I'm your host, Matt Cubbler. Before I introduce this guy right here, first of all, we have the same barber. I'll point out it for those listening, I'm bald, he's bald, in case you were wondering what that meant. But God only makes so many perfect heads. The rest he put hair on. Let's just start there. But Robert Riopel is a talented guy from north of the border in Canada. I don't have a whole lot of Canadian guests. You might be my fourth or fifth Canadian guest, but that'll be fun. As long as you don't say A or hoser, I think we'll be good. Because that's my only reference point for Canada, right? I can't remember that movie back in the day, but Hey Hoser, whatever that movie was with the brothers.
The Great White North.
The Great White North.
Brothers. Yeah.
So before we get into talking to you and learning all about your story and what you're doing and how you're helping people become more authentic and successful in life, I want to tell everybody where they can hear the podcast, pretty much anywhere. iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, Pandora, iHeart, wherever you listen to podcasts, you can listen to them there. You can also tune in on my YouTube channel, which is Matt Cubbler. Please make sure you subscribe, hit the little bell on YouTube, and also the automatic download on the audio podcast platforms. That helps me out a lot. If you want to learn a little bit more about me and what I've done in my life and what I'm up to, you can go to mattcubbler.com, and that's where you can also learn about my book I wrote, A Brother's Love, a Memoir. I wrote that in 2006. It is a memoir tribute to my brother, Andy, who was autistic and severe stutter, and sadly was killed in a car accident in 1989. When I was 18, he was 21. It just details our life story together and how his death impacted my life and changed the way that I was living my life and kind of helped me become the man I am today. And, I always tell people the best and worst day of my life was when my brother died. The worst day, clearly, because I miss my best friend and I miss my brother, but the best because it altered my life in such a way that allowed me to grow and become the man that I am. And I don't know, had I not gone through that trauma, if I would be where I am today. So it's a double-edged sword when you lose somebody sometimes. And so I appreciate anybody who wants to buy that. My Brother's Love, a Memoir. You can also go to Amazon or anywhere else you buy books online. All right, I guess that's about it. That's a great show. Take care. No. Without further ado, my man Robert, how are you?
Great, Matt, and yourself?
I'm good. First of all, I want to give a shout out to Alex Sanfilippo, who was a guest before he ever created Podmatch, which is the site that we met on. Which is, if you're a podcaster or if you want to be a guest on podcast, go to podmatch.com, I believe it is, and sign up, and they match you. You put in it's kind of like dating, but for podcasts. No swipe right, I don't think. But it's a really cool concept. And he was on my show, and he was just sort of starting to think about this platform. And I'm really happy that he did it, and it seems to be working out really well. And I'm getting some great guests. So tell me what it's like. First of all, you live up in Alberta, right? In that area?
Yep.
And you made a joke, because I'm in Philly and outside of Philly, and it was shitty the last couple of days, and it's beautiful today. But you were saying in Canada, especially where you live, if you don't like the weather, look out the other window. What's that? Is it really that?
It can. Oh, Matt, it can change so quickly. And literally, I can be in my house. It could be sunshine out the back window, but out the front, it's storming. And I've been out camping with my wife, and it's beautiful weather. All of a sudden the rain starts pouring. Next thing you know, we got hail, and by the time it's done, we've got snow piled up this 3-4 inches high, and all of a sudden by the end of the day it's all melted and we're back to sun. It's crazy.
I wonder what that is. Is it where it sits between the mountains and all that kind of stuff, or what's the cause and effect for weather being that volatile?
A lot of it, I believe, is because where I was living an hour and a half north or south of where I am now, we are right up against the beginning of the Rocky Mountains for Canada. And we have what's called a Chinook arch. So the wind comes up over the mountain and it creates a bubble over the city of Calgary, where it could be where I'm now, an hour and a half drive away. It could be -10 Celsius, Fahrenheit. Don't ask me to go there. And it could be +3 in Calgary, less than 100, less than 60 miles away. And so that Chinook Arch causes a lot of fun stuff. And so we get all these, weather kind of patterns that come through, and you like anywhere, you learn to live with it. I go to Malaysia and I end up in 45, so 110, 115, 20 degree Fahrenheit weather, and it's humid, and I'm dying, and they're like climatized. So you come to Canada, you come here, we climatize. If it's -1, I'm out in a t-shirt because that's summer weather.
I love, first of all, I love weather changes. To me, there's some people move south and go to Florida or where, like San Diego or whatever. I mean, that'd be great for a month or two. Then I'd probably be baseball batting people on the street because I just can't take that much consistency in my life. Like I need to have chaos. I thrive in chaos. And weather is nothing if it's not chaos.
Yeah, and we could talk. That's like one of the things I teach people actually is I have what's called the 4 phases of life. And one is chaos, or what I call unclutter, where you courageously destroy something or else the universe will destroy it for you. And so, that's a whole different topic.
We're going to go down that road. You're in my wheelhouse now. That's my backgrounds. And for everybody, we're literally about 12 minutes into our knowing each other. And everybody that's a fan of the show knows I don't do a whole lot of research, and I certainly don't. I try to be as fresh-faced with this as I possibly can, because just like you guys are, you're learning about Robert, and I want to learn about Robert at the same time. So when I'm asking questions, it's kind of like off the cuff and on the fly, and just like my life, I like to wing things. And but my background's in human behavior and body language, and that's what my expertise is in. So for me, doing these podcasts and learning about somebody on the fly, I'm reading you at the same time. I'm trying to understand your body language and whether or not I'm boring the shit out of you or we're really engaging. Like I'm trying to make sure that I'm hitting the spots using my talents to do that. So you've listened to a few episodes, which I truly do appreciate, because for the record, the podcast land out there, not many guests listen to the show that they're asking to be a guest on. It's mind-boggling to me that somebody would reach out to me and say, hey, I want to be a guest on your show, and I have no clue what my show's like. Like, it may not be a fit. You may not be a storyteller. You may not be engaging enough for my audience. So when people ask and then they don't listen to the show, and I just had a guy that did that the other on the pod match, and I think he took offense to the fact I asked him to listen to some shows before, I respond yes or no. And I'm glad that you did listen, and it shows that you have an interest in me, and you have an interest in what we're about to go, what path we're about to go down. And you know that I asked the question the same to everybody, because it's a broad question, an intentionally broad question, but it forces you to open your brain up and think about how you want to answer that question. So I'm going to ask you the same one I ask everybody. Who is Robert Raipel?
Well, I am redneck as redneck could be. I grew up in a community where, thank goodness I travel around the world now, Matt, to really understand and I've become so much more tolerant, because I grew up and didn't matter if you liked what you're doing, you work hard, you find the company that's going to pay you the most, and you find the company that's the most secure. So post office, if you can get on with that union, you're set. And that was our whole mindset. And so growing up as a kid, that's what I was taught to do. Work hard and stay loyal. And I was doing that. But 21 years of age, I'm laid off from 3 companies. And I'm going, this isn't working. And here in Alberta, we have oil, like Texas. And so if oil prices are up, everybody's working. If oil prices are down, nobody's working. And so I get laid off from the 3rd company right after I'm newly married, want to take care of my family, and all of a sudden there's no work. And I'm pounding the pavement trying to find that real job, putting the shirt, the tie, everything on. And there's nothing. So I start delivering pizzas. I started delivering pizzas for Domino's Pizza out of necessity. And I was able to go from being a pizza delivery driver to a manager. My wife becomes my assistant manager. We start working open and close 7 days a week. Why? We know how to work hard. And a year and a half in, I'm now qualified to be a franchisee. And my franchisee, he's done with Domino's. He doesn't want to be in it anymore. And he wants to sell his 2 stores. Well, we want to buy the store we're working in, but we have no money. But one of the things that I have that served me so well is I have passion. If there's something I want to do, I'll stumble through until I figure out how to make it work. And so it took us about 4 months and a lot of ups and downs. A lot of people, Matt, tell you what, I love you kids. This is going to be great. I'll get you the financing. My fee is $1,000 up front. We'll get you that financing. Okay, great. Here's $1,000. Oh, no, sorry. You don't have enough experience. It's like, but every time we learned something new, and then we were able to buy both of his stores with no money of our own. We thought we had it made. We're franchisees. We're now set. We started making pretty good money, but our mindset was we started spending more money than we were earning. By the time we were franchisees for 8 years, we're over $150,000 in debt and going down quick. And that's actually when we were given tickets to a personal development seminar. And my brother-in-law, and this is going to date me because I now know I'm the same age as you, I'm 1 year older maybe, is my brother-in-law says, Robert, you got to listen to these cassette tapes by this guy named Tony Robbins. Now, cassette tapes, and I'm like, I'm not listening to that stuff. I don't need that stuff. I'm a Domino's Pizza franchisee, Ego was in play, but humbling when you get deep in debt. And I don't know, there's a lot of stresses I've been through, but the worst has always been financial. That's one that hits me the hardest. And so all of a sudden these tickets get handed to us and it changed our lives. March 2001, we walk into a room for 3 hours, blew us away. I have no money, but what do? I'm running to the back with $600 to buy for my wife and I a 3-day weekend 3 months later. And we walked into that weekend just to get our money back because I went through huge buyer's remorse. Our stores are struggling. We're like, I need my money back. They didn't fight me on it. I was ready for that fight, right? Tell me I can't have my money. I dare you. But the nicest woman in the world said, look, nothing I can do right now. She knew what was going on. She said, come in till the lunch break. By then I'll have answers for you. Fine. We go walking in. By lunchtime, we're enthralled. We're just blown away. She comes, finds us, good to her word, says, let's talk about that refund. And we're like, get away from us. We don't need a refund. What are you talking about? We walk out 3 days from that 3-day event, totally thinking different, understanding why we're in debt, understanding what had happened. And next thing you know, we go from $150,000 in debt to actually being able to retire completely financially free 9 months later when we're 32 years of age. And my mind went, shit, that worked. If this much information gave me that result, what would more do? And we spent the next 2.5 years just diving into learning from everyone. Because I'm a big believer, don't just learn from one person in one way. Learn from as many people as you can. And I found my passion was to teach. I had no experience. I had no credentials, but I had passion. I ended up getting put up on stage for 5 minutes one day. And that's why I tell people it's amazing how 5 minutes can change your life. Because of that moment in 2002, I've now been blessed for the last 18 plus years to travel around the world. Personally taught over 500,000 people how to create financial freedom in their life. I spend up to 12 hours a day on stage, 3 to 5 days in a row, and get to live my absolute passion. And the greatest feeling for me is when someone comes up and says, do you remember when you said this? Here's how it changed my life. And it's like, how do you beat that? So that's kind of who I am.
I love that. And again, everybody, we don't know each other. So I didn't know anything about the fact that he was a franchisee for Domino's. I didn't know anything about the Tony Robbins thing. So I'll give you a little background on me. I'm a franchisor. I was. I created a franchise business.
Okay.
Unique gym equipment business. Did the whole franchising. 50,000 hours later, where we can now sell franchises, blah, 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 blah. Thank God we didn't. Or we would have been bankrupt and sued, and we just weren't ready. And we have I own 4 patents on equipment that we manufacture in the fitness, strength and conditioning, neurological, neuromuscular rehab space. And it all started though from 2009 when I bought a piece of technology from a struggling gym that the inventor was a part of. And we decided we were going to try to franchise, and we were doing all this. We had 3 locations. And this is why I was a full-time cop still, doing all this stuff to get ready to be a franchise. But what it actually became was, and I don't know if you ever saw Step Brothers. You ever seen the movie Step Brothers?
Step Brothers.
With
not ringing a bell.
It's on your homework list. Watch Step Brothers. You have to watch it twice to get it. It's stupid comedy. It's two 40-year-old guys acting like they're 9. But it's Will Ferrell and John C. Reilly are in it. Anyways, he said one line, he goes, it's his beat laboratory where he has his drum set. So I used my fitness franchise models as my laboratory.
Okay.
Utilize human people as test subjects in an experiment that lasted 10 years in order to understand how to use our technology on the human body in order to make them stronger and healthier.
Oh, wow.
And it was an amazing 10-year experiment. And now we have a new device we're launching, and it's fantastic. But we thankfully never franchised a single location, and no one ever gave us money, or else we would be royally fucked. And I'm glad that didn't happen. And I never want to hear franchising ever again. But I also have a Tony Robbins connection. While I am not a Tony Robbins guy, and I didn't go to any of his things, one of my best friends was, yes.
In all my years of being in this industry, he's one person I still haven't shared a stage with, hosted, or learned from.
So Tony Robbins is life coach.
Oh, yeah.
Was a friend of mine, good friend of mine.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Have you ever been on Tony's website at all? Ever? He has you ever do disc?
Yeah.
So my buddy owns one of the largest disc profile companies in the world called Intermetric.
Okay.
It's Tony uses it on his website. So in that personal development world, while I don't go to those things, as we talked about off air, I'm not a conformer, nor am I a joiner. I prefer to seek out one-on-one coaching from people, but I do appreciate the fact that there are people out there who have knowledge and value and understand how to help others find it within themselves to be better. Yeah. And I think it's a crowded field, I would guess, where there's a lot of people who claim to be doing what you're doing, but it's probably a very small group of people who are actually doing it well. But is that something that you would think?
You hit it right on the head. People always go, Robert, I want to do what you do. And I tell them, careful what you wish for. Because look, and it's like you see a movie star. I want to be that movie star. Okay, I want to be Michael Jordan. Let's go to the documentary I love, The Last Dance, right?
Oh, great one.
And yeah, and now one of the last episodes where they're interviewing him during the whole big Like Mike campaign, and he looks at the reporter and he says, you don't want to be like me, maybe for a day, but you can handle being me for a week or longer. And that's what people don't get. They like to see the shiny results of the great stuff that's happened, but they don't look at the sweat, the energy, the blood, the commitment that's put into it. And it's like, unless you're willing to do that, don't think you can have this. But a lot of people will do that fake it till you make it syndrome, imposter syndrome, to, oh yeah, I'm doing amazing. And okay, let's see your results. Let's see your books. Let's see how you're doing. Can you back up what you're saying? Can you really show that you've done it, or are you just pulling a lot of shit out of your ass? Right. Or rectal pull is,
right. It's amazing when you think about human behavior. We live in an instant gratification world.
Yes.
We live in a social media controlled environment where you may not want to, like, I lead with my worst. Like I turn it on its head. I don't put out all this greatness about myself. I lead with my shit. Right. That's what I want people to see. And then when you write a book about your life, it's kind of hard to hide from your shit anyways. But and it's actually comforting to know there's no skeletons. Right.
Yeah.
I don't, there isn't a single thing. I've done some fucked up stuff. I mean, as a cop, you'll think, oh my God, he must be great. My 12 to 18 was a shit show. Like the things that I did, I'm embarrassed about that that those are choices that I made, but I don't regret any of them.
But it's what's made you who you are today.
Absolutely.
Right? And from the moment we started talking, there's going to be, I want to really introduce you to a friend of mine. You've already got a lot in common. He's not a police officer, but he is a human behaviorist. He does the whole body language. He actually runs one of the top treatment centers in all of the US for teens at risk out in Colorado. He's rated in the top 50 of treatment facilities where he takes kids that are at the red line, you know, suicide attempts, drugs, alcohol, and it's a live-in. He works mainly with the families to try and prevent the kids from having to come to his facility. So he's all about the prevention. He says, my best work is if they never have to come see me. And but this guy, I'll tell you, he, like you, reads body language, reads facial. And I know I want to connect the two of you because the conversations I know the two of you will have, and he says, your pain becomes your path. Let your misery become that's your resume. Everything that went wrong in your life, that's what now gives you the right to help the other people. Because there's a lot of stuff he can teach I can't, because I've never experienced it. I've never gone through the drug addictions, losing a family because drugs were more important than, you know, a daughter was, and stuff like that. And so I just see there's a synergy. I got to connect you with them.
I would truly appreciate that, and thank you. And I think what you're saying is so true with, you know, with the social media. People have the ability to live in whatever world they want to create without any checks or balances.
Yep.
And even if there's people that they know that are friends with them on social media, and I have a friend of mine that's like this. He lives his very best life, but he's a shit show. Like his life is a goddamn train wreck. But if you look at him, you're like, oh my God, I want to be just like him. But you don't.
Yep.
Trust me.
Nope.
But yet he still puts that out there because there's enough people that don't really know him that think he's then this super, engaged, super talented, super well-known person that he gets his high, his hit of happiness, of joy, of ego that allows him to forget the fact that there's all these people that know he's full of shit.
Yep.
And I think as a society, we fail to accept, embrace, and then employ our journey. Like every part, and I tell people all the time, especially the kids I mentor, I'm like, this moment, like, I'll use an example, and it's mostly kids that I mentor. I don't really spend a whole time with adults because they usually annoy the fuck out of me. But and I don't have the energy. I do that on a daily basis for my job. Like my job is to fuck things in 5 minutes. I really don't need to mess with your adult level problems. That's just, and the amount of unpacking is just way too much effort for me. But for kids, there's a lot of, it shifts, right? That's all you got to do is redirect. It's not necessarily, for the most part, a full rework of who they are. There's just little shifts that you can do to help them rechange their direction or their focus. And with kids, you take, we'll say like a breakup, right? The love of their life, they're 15. I love him. He loves me. Oh my God, he cheated on me. We're broken up. I want to die. And I shift that. And it's one little thing when you go, this person clearly wasn't your forever person.
Right.
And you can't say logically, how would you think he is at 15? But there are those rare stories where somebody's been together since they were 13 and they're still together now. But is that you? It's rare.
We met when we were 13. Yeah, it is. We met when we were 13. We started dating when we were 16. We got married when we were 19, and in 3 days we celebrated our 32nd wedding anniversary.
Dude, you're a goddamn rock star. All hail Robert, because I love those stories. But it's such, you're the anomaly, right?
But people don't realize it takes a lot of work.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah. As soon as I learned that the two most important words in a relationship are yes, dear, my married life got so much better, right? But there's ups and downs like anything.
I think with kids, when you tell a kid, and what I was trying to get to the point with the breakup is, this person probably wasn't going to be your forever person, but what you learned from this person will help you find that forever person so much quicker. That when you will know, because you're embracing that suck, and you're analyzing it, you're absorbing, you're taking away all those learning moments from the worst moment of your life at the moment. And you're using it to help build your future. And I think we tend, I don't care if you're 80 or 8, we tend to forget the worst moments because we don't want to think about them. When in actuality, my personal opinion, and just from my own personal life story, the worst moments of my life became the greatest moments of my life.
Yeah. And see, when you're talking about your brother, I see that. I watch your energy shift. I watch how you just drop into a deeper space. And the fact that you're acknowledging that, like right now, I'm lit up. For those who can't see it, I'm lit up. If I had hair on my head, it'd be standing up right now. And that's one of the greatest gifts that you have to share with people, is because you take that tragedy that you went through and you said, what did I learn from it? Instead of going, victim, why me, and all that. And that's the difference between people that can do well, because I am a big believer, Matt, that everything happens for a reason, and a lot of people hear that, but they don't know the second part of it, which is everything happens for a reason, and that reason is there to serve me. And so if you look at anything good, bad, ugly, or otherwise that happens in your life, and you can say, okay, what's the lesson? I had a dog lunge at my throat and miss my jugular by an inch, and puncture wounds under my goatee, ripped through my chin, took 9 stitches to close it up. And instead of going, oh shit, why the fuck did this happen to me? I went, okay, why did this happen to me? And it was when I stepped back from speaking, I said I was going to take a year off because I was burnt out. It turned into 3.5 years in total. And at the 2-year mark, lessons have been coming. Robert, start speaking or else. Because I'm a big believer that if you don't, we all have a gift, and it's use it or lose it. And one of my gifts is I know how to move people from the stage. But here I am, a year's gone by, and I'm not even thinking of wanting to speak or train again. And the universe, God, whatever you want to go by, is giving me messages, and I'm not listening. Well, I put a dog in my place, a bull mastiff, and I'm an animal lover, right in front of my house, and the people are like, we just rehabilitated her. You don't want to get too close, so we talked for a while. And eventually I knelt down, they brought her closer, let her smell my hand, no problem, petted her head, petted her neck, no issue. Until the moment I went to stand up, she lunged at my throat. But because I was standing, my chin had naturally dropped, so she got my chin instead of my throat and tried to start dragging me to the ground. And the only thing in my mind is, she gets me on the ground, I'm dead. So I stood up and she's hanging off my chin. And the guy who's walking her, he has to pry her jaws off of me. Now it's taking him and his wife to hold her back. And across from my house at that time, there's a playground, and there was 30 kids in the playground. It was August 10th, 2010, a date I will not forget. And I'm sitting there, blood all over the place. Now my mind's going, there's 30 kids. I said, get her out of here. I said, I live right there. I'll get taken care of. So they start dragging the dog up the road. I'm walking up the driveway, and there's blood going all over. I'm walking on my sidewalk. I'm about to go in the house. And Matt, what's the only thought that goes through my head? If I get blood in the house, my wife's going to kill me. Right? It's insane what goes through your head. I open the door and I'm like, Roxanne? I'm thinking I'm saying a call. She comes running because she can hear something, and she's like, what's going on? I'm like, a dog attacked me. And all of a sudden now I'm safe. I'm a safe zone. So I start to go white and I'm about to pass out. And my wife knows if I drop, there's no way she'd get me in the hospital. So she goes into what we call her warrior mode. She looks at me and she goes, don't you faint, get to that car. And I'm like, yes, dear. And when we were all done and said, I looked back and I went, okay, what's the lesson? And I realized that 1 inch further, it would have got my jugular, and me and my gift would have been gone like that. And it was in that moment I made the decision that I had to start speaking again. I had to start training. And I'll tell you, and you've experienced this a lot, I'm sure. When you make up your mind and you say something's going to happen, all of a sudden, everybody, like, things come from out of nowhere to assist you on that path. Within 2 weeks, the company I retired from was phoning me out of the blue going, will you look at coming out of retirement? We need you to travel around the world doing more training. And I'm like, yeah, absolutely. And it still took 1.5 years to do it because I'd gone through 2 back surgeries because I hadn't been taking care of myself. Everybody loves a great glamour life, but they didn't see that I was at home on average only 2 days a month. I was on stage 12 hours a day. I was then traveling from city to city. And because I wasn't taking care of me, my body was paying the price. And 2 back surgeries, it still took me another 1.5 years to fully do my rehab and get to where, because I will not go through that kind of surgery again. I choose not to. So I knew if I was going to train again, we had to change the boundaries. One, I'm only doing 20 trainings a year, no matter where in the world you use me. And that way I have 6 months at home because, Matt, I like my time off. oh boy, do I like my time off, right? And it allows me now to live my passion, but have my time off as well and take care of myself. But had I not gone through those lessons, I couldn't impact people, a lot of the people that I do the way I do. Because, oh, my life's perfect. You can't relate to me because I have no worries. And that's what a lot of people on the stage try to do. And that's why I love that you lead with the worst, because now people go, oh, you're human. Huh. Okay. Maybe it can relate to you. And then that's when we can help them the most, in my opinion.
I agree. And first of all, I'm glad you're speaking and your face isn't ripped off. I mean, that's definitely the good, whatever you got scar wise, you're looking pretty good from this vantage point.
Well, I did, it's funny. I did have a plastic surgeon come up to me and said, one of my students, he said, Robert, I'm a plastic surgeon. I can get rid of that scar you have left there. And I'm like, hell no. He goes, well, why not? I said, anytime I'm getting comfortable, I just have to feel it and remind myself, nope, keep doing what you love.
And that's, there's something to be said about a reminder. Mm-hmm. Something that sticks with you, and that's sort of like the guy that's saying, sitting on your shoulder, telling you, get your ass back in the game, or whatever the verbiage would be. But I think, and I want to point out though, when I tell people my story, and they see me now, and they see me this motivational, inspirational kind of guy, and I wrote this book, and I will say that for 13 years, I was in a really dark place after my brother died. Mm-hmm. And I got stuck, I was 18 when it happened. About 3 weeks after he died, I left for basic training in the Army. So I never really had like a grieving period. Yeah. And I didn't grow up in a house where I felt comfortable grieving. I love my mother to death, and we had a great relationship, and I had a stepfather, and he's still a great man. I love him. But when you're 18 and he's your stepdad and he's a pastor, which didn't necessarily jive with me at the time, I didn't really have an urge or desire or safe place to have that outlet. Yeah. And I just sort of shoved it down and bottled it. And for 13 years, I was successful in my career and met my wife and had a child, and people would look at that and go, everything's great. But I literally couldn't love, I couldn't feel, I couldn't care, I couldn't have joy, I couldn't have any of those things because I was so angry and broken, because I was so angry at God for taking my brother, and I was so guilt-ridden that I wasn't the one that was taken, because my brother was this pure, angelic human, and I was, like I said, a shit show from 12 to 18 who did a lot of bad things. And I was good for my brother, I took care of my brother, but I wasn't a good person all the time. And so I had all this shit going on inside of me. And it wasn't until my son was born, who I named after my brother.
Oh, wow.
3 months after he was born, we had people over and to see the baby and all that kind of stuff. And my grandmother, who was my stepfather's mom, by this point in time, all my maternal, paternal grandparents were deceased. So my grandmother, and when you have like a baby shower, people come over to see a baby, the dads are usually in the kitchen drinking beer, watching sports. They're not out opening up onesies and bibs, right? So that's just not normally the game. So my grandmother says, you need to be in here. I have a gift for you. So she hands me this box. I open this box up, and inside this box is this quilt. And in my head, I'm going, does she not know me? Like, why would she give me a quilt? Like, I'm like the quintessential non-quilt guy, right? I barely wear a cover at bed, let alone a quilt.
Okay, so TMI.
Right. No, I mean, I wear underwear, for Christ's sake. But so I pulled it back up and I put it in the box and I hand it back to my grandma. I said, I think this is probably for Lauren, my wife. She goes, no. And she gives me like that. My grandmother's this tiny little woman. She looked at me, she goes, no, look at it. And I'm like, with that, like she's about ready to smash me. And I'm like, okay. And I open it up and I look at it. And it's yellow and white and like blue paisleys. And there's 2 teddy bears. And the top teddy bear has a gold Andy stitched. And that was kind of like the thing that triggered. And it was my brother's work shirt that he worked at a long-term care facility, and he was driving home from there on the day he died. And he was wearing this shirt, and it's like his work shirt, and it was Andy. And then it was all, what I found out was the week my brother died, my mom and stepdad were down in the Delaware Shore, and we were down for the week prior to that, and they stayed for an extra week. And I was working, and I was at a friend's house, staying at a friend's. My brother was staying with my grandmother. And for 13 years, she kept his clothes in a vacuum sealed bag and used his clothes to make this quilt to give to me when my son was born. And needless to say, that was a very powerful gift and an emotional day. And while people were still at my house, I went down to my office in the basement and I started to cry and write memories about my brother. And I didn't come back up until 7:30 the next morning. And at that point, I had 26,000 words of memories written about my brother that I just saved in the files. And it was like floodgates opened up.
Yeah.
And when people read the book, they point out the most vivid parts of the book that were like as if they were there. And it's when I wrote those that night were those memories. And because literally I was reliving my life over about a 10-hour period of time. And that was the day that the cloud lifted and the sun sort of shone down on me, and I began to heal. So when I talk to people, I come from a place of, yes, I made it through, but I'm not necessarily a blueprint on how to make it through. I don't.
Well, but
on the 13-year period part, I did a lot of destructive things.
Yeah, but here's what I think that is a great example of what you were just saying, though, is there's no cookie cutter that if this happens, you have to get over it in this amount of time. Everybody's got their own journey to be on, and it's their journey. And so, yeah, it took you 13 years, but look at what you've now from that journey where you're at today. And so people will say, oh, I got over it quickly. Yeah, did you really? You know, I watched my brother come back with severe PTSD. Started in the armed forces at 17 and 6 peacekeeping tour duties in over a very short period of time, and had to do some messed up things and came back with severe PTSD. And he's just now starting like 10, 11 years later. Oh no, he's older than me. So 15 years later since he retired, he's just now finding that, he became a scuba dive master. Why? Because the only place that could calm his PTSD was scuba diving, where he's focused on his breath and he's just in that space. And so now he wants to work with wounded warriors and teaching them how to scuba dive so they can hopefully find that peace. His journey was his journey. It's no one else's. Your journey is yours. And to say, well, you've got to get over this quick, bullshit. It's your journey.
And I think we talked about in the very beginning about the chaos. And where I was afraid to be for a very long time was in my own mind, was in my own heart. Like I didn't want to be alone with that. So I constantly overstimulated myself, whether it was with drinking or whether it was with work or whether it was with whatever. I was constantly creating as much stimulus as possible in order to press down the thing that wanted to rise up. And I became very adept in chaos. And in my line of work, and I was SWAT for 12 years, I was an air marshal for 4.5 years. I'm Army intelligence. Like I thrive in chaos, but I've also learned to really thrive alone with my thoughts. And what I found is that there's two parts of me. There's two personalities within me, two distinct, strongest. There's many personalities. I got all kinds of shit going on, but my two major personalities are this emotionally connected, heart-driven person who wants to share what's in his heart. And then there's the other part of me that is very pragmatic, very black and white, very cause and effect, triaging kind of mindset. So, and I embrace both of them. And I think people who are trauma survivors, no matter it's PTSD, which I also suffer from, or losing a loved one, or marriage falling apart, or whatever, drugs and alcohol, whatever that is, you have to be willing to do that work to look inward and see who are you. I tell people all the time, and I'm sure you do when you're training people, understanding their strengths and weaknesses. not just on a tangible level, like I'm good at math and I suck in English, but like, who are you and what are your strengths? What do you bring to the world? And when you do that hard work to really look inward, and I did that once I let go, once I was able to access that part of my mind and my heart, and it really became clear, and like the clarity that was brought from that, and my understanding of who I am and where I fit in and what I have to offer and what I want from this world and what I want to give it back became very, very clear. And I think people like you who are coaching people and training people and fostering them into their greatness, that you probably are the one that is helping them identify that within themselves.
And a lot of times it is, because that to me is, I tell people, my belief, the greatest gift anybody can give the world is to be them, be authentic, whatever that looks like. Give us the good, give us the bad, give us the ugly. Because those who can't handle you ugly in your deepest, darkest times, do they have the right to be in your greatest times when, you know, everything's going right? And I do go back to that. What you've gone through is going to allow you to impact people I could never connect with, because I didn't go through it. I could just say words. I know how you feel. This is great. But it would all be bullshit because I don't know how a person feels going through something that I haven't gone through. And so that's why my passion is when I can find a trainer, someone who has a story to share, and we all have stories to share, and I can help them be authentic on that stage. The gentleman I want to introduce you to, he probably one of the greatest lessons in my training life came from him. I'm doing a training where he's there as one of the guests, helping out in a 5-day camp we're doing, a very intense physical camp. And I'm teaching 6 trainers at the exact same time that I'm teaching the camp. And this camp goes 6 a.m. to 1 a.m., 5 days in a row. And I put people across a 36-foot firewalk on one of those days to, you know, show them how powerful their mind is. And I'm teaching 6 trainers how to do what I'm doing. So we're starting 2 hours before the students. We're ending an hour and a half, 2 hours after the students. So it's intense. And we have a break where I've got the 6 of them talking to him. And one of the trainers, he looks at, he's in what he was talking about, he goes, and Robert's my guru. And I didn't even realize I had a subtle flinch. But like I said, like you, my friend reads body language, and he goes, Tom, stop. He said, Robert, what just happened? I'm like, nothing, Aaron, just keep going. He goes, no. What just happened? I'm like, it's about them. He says, we're not doing any more talking until you tell us what the fuck you just reacted to there. And I'm like, fine. I said, I don't like that word guru. He goes, why? I said, because I'm just me. I'm just an everyday person. And he looked at me, he said, okay, I want you to spell, and I'm going to ask you to do this for me, Matt. Spell the word guru.
G-U-R-U.
Yeah.
G-U-R-U.
You are you. And all of a sudden it became one of the greatest compliments I could ever receive, is because in this training industry, I've seen so many people that who they are on the stage is not who they are off the stage. And that drives me bonkers. If you're an asshole, be an asshole on the stage. At least those who are connected to you know that you're an asshole. Plain and simple.
But do you notice, and do you get feedback from people? Because I do this all the time, and it's the reason why I don't join. Mm-hmm. Because I spend the entire time reading people, and it becomes almost like a clairvoyant or a medium that hears voices, and they're trying not to hear them at whatever time that happens. I don't know how that works, but it seems like for me, everywhere I go, whether I'm in church, whether I'm in a school assembly, whether I'm in a group environment that is new and I don't know the people, I spend my time reading people and determining their bullshit meter level. And are they, you know, I go to a restaurant, and my wife hates it because I go to a restaurant, I'm watching everybody's interaction. She's like, will you just stop? I'm like, I can't. Yep. Like, it's like, I don't know how to turn it off. But so I go like way overboard. When you're doing what you're doing in the world that you're in, and you know your contemporaries, and I know a lot of people that are full of shit, that are somehow making it work in the trainer, speaker, expert world. Do you notice it right away who the bullshit artists are and who aren't, or is it something that you've had to develop? Like, was it something you knew right away who to trust and who are the?
Yeah. and it's a work in process. And I had to, condition myself to learn when to shut it off, because I am very, I take on people's energies very easily. And what's interesting, I never used to believe in all this stuff. And now when I started training, I happened to be in a weekend, a small audience for me was 1,500, 2,000 people. And we do a lot of emotional releasing. And I didn't realize I was taking a lot of it on. And I didn't realize why I was paying the price and all that. And because I didn't believe in energy, I didn't believe in all that stuff. And I'm good at what's called processing people. Someone can be sharing something from the stage, and I can also tell them about their life and go dig deep. And they're like, how the hell did you know that? And it's from being present. It's a skill that's developed. But in the beginning, I didn't know how to turn it off. And so like you, everywhere, I was hypersensitive. And when my wife and I were down in California, two of our students originally from where we lived in Alberta, in Calgary, a mom and son that had opened up what they called the Aura Shop. And it had your rocks, it had your, all about the chakras and that. And we went to visit their shop because my wife loves her stones and stuff. And we walk in and they're like, oh, let's read your aura. I'm like, no, it's okay, guys. No, just stand in front of the computer. Let's see what's going on in your body. Because I'm starting to believe on this stuff, but I'm still a little too woo-woo, right? So they take a picture and they show me and they're like, oh my God. And they start telling me from how out of whack it is, the kind of stuff that was going on in my life in that moment. And I'm just like, I do this to people. How do you know this? And they took me to the back onto a light bed and they laid me on this bed for 20 minutes. And while the light's adjusting, he's hitting these sound bars tubes all the way around me. And I come out of there feeling so refreshed, and they retake the picture. It's just vibrant and line. And they said, look, with the releasing, you've got to protect yourself. When you got 1,000 people, 1,500, 2,000 sending their negative energy that they're releasing, you're taking it on. And I had to learn to be able to protect myself. And I do. I visualize a white bubble around myself, or their eyes are closed so they don't see me do this. I block 2 of my chakras. And it's the only way I've been able to, turn it off. And then when I'm off the stage, I quit processing. I'll go watch a movie so I can go mindless. 3 days on stage, I want to go watch a movie. Let me just watch something that's, action, bang them up, blow them up, because it disconnects my head. And then that's my trigger to say, okay, let it go now. You're not on stage. And so it's skills I've had to develop over the years just to keep myself from going bonkers. So, and I don't know if that answers your question.
No, it does, because it's like you're speaking my brain, because I own other people's shit. Right, wrong, or it's the way I've always been. I've always owned, like if we're friends and you have a problem, I own that, because I need to help you. And yeah. It's been, and it's a conditioned thing, and I know why it is. And until I get out of police work, I can't really turn it off, because it's the thing that makes me a really great cop. Having nothing in my life, growing up on welfare, living in projects, having a mom work 3 jobs, never having a gift or knew anything in my life. Everything was a hand-me-down from some thrift store or some family member or whatever the case might be. Yeah. Sneakers and shoes. And when we did get new shoes, they were from the bin at the end of the grocery store aisle. We called them Bobos. I don't know what they call them in Canada, but I knew that and having a brother who was always in need. Always. I had to be on all the time. From the time I was little, I was the older brother. So yeah. I knew that I needed to be there to protect him and to keep him safe, and to make sure that, when they would call him a retard or whatever the mean words that they would say, or make fun of his stutter, that I could deflect that onto me. And I've owned that my entire life. And it is exhausting, and it is physically destructive. Like I'm about to have back surgery in 2 months. So I've been living with this ungodly pain in my back for years. And it's just now to the point where I just can't function. But I know, and I've done a lot of research over the last 1.5 years or so about energy and 5D consciousness and all the other stuff that is now making its way to more conspiracy theory world conversations. But I think it's very much real. If you walk in a room and it's tense, why do you think, oh, we can cut the tension in that room with a knife? Like, that's a reason why, the reason why you feel that and sense that
Yep.
is because it's real, and that energy is being brought onto you. And I become um, a receptacle of all
Mm-hmm.
energy.
Mm-hmm.
And my body sometimes processes it and sometimes it doesn't. And I believe
Oh,
a lot of my physical problems are a result of long-term energy absorption that never was released. And
absolutely.
and I
Absolutely.
think people not understanding the power of energy, whether it's toxic or love or hate or anger or joy or pain, that energy is real, and it's ever present, and it doesn't just simply belong to you. It's
Very correct.
emitted and someone else is absorbing it. And if we're not acknowledging that, then we're being very selfish.
Mm-hmm.
When
Yeah,
you
totally.
when you created your principles, and we're going to talk about what those are for your training. And I love when people are unique in how they do something, even though they may have been inspired by someone else who does something in the same space. But when they take and they make it fit to who they are and they make it fit to their strengths so that they can become the best person for someone else. I love that. So when you had your aha moment, when you decided that this was the direction you want to go in, when you thought you were getting a refund and you ended up staying, and when did you decide, when did you come up with, or when did it birth inside of your brain this concept to create the success left a clue?
Well, that's the interesting thing, is because in 2001, while I was just becoming a student, I want to write a book. I had no idea what I wanted to write, but I wanted to write a book, right? And it took 16 years before I actually published that book. And it was a dramatically different book than when I had first thought of even doing it, because it was a lot of my life experiences that went into it.
Mm-hmm.
And I was in no rush to do it. I trusted that it was going to come out when it did, and it was meant to. And so, but it was in 2002 when I saw my life change that I knew I had to be a trainer. I had seen what the impact was on from my wife and myself and our families, both youngest in our families. I'm youngest of 4, she's youngest of 5. She grew up in a family where mother raised 5 kids on her own. And so you talk about the handy, like I'm relating to everything you're saying, and we come from those families. I didn't know I thought it was normal that kindergarten, grade 1, grade 2, grade 3, grade 4, I never spent more than 6 months in a school, because to keep feeding the family, my parents had to move for work. And I thought that was normal. And I'm a naturally shy kid. And so I want to make friends because I don't know how long I'm going to be there. And so all these things that came together, now all of a sudden I'm starting to find, I know I'm here to teach people. And I was blessed to be in the right place because I had the tenacity. People say, Robert, what does it take to be a great trainer? Tenacity. Because it's a shit show. And if you don't have the tenacity, you're not going to last. And so I've lasted 18 plus years because I'm so passionate about it that I know this is what I want to do. So that started around 2002, 2003 is when I really knew this is what I had to be doing.
So when you began your business, because I think being an entrepreneur, people don't understand that 98% of being an entrepreneur is failure and struggle and self-doubt and getting knocked down and wondering how in the hell or why you chose this path and how the hell can I either get myself out of it, because there's always that maybe this isn't for me. And then when you get past that, when you go, don't be a bitch, and you're like, okay, I got to get through this. I created this. I started this. I can't quit on it. Then you have to figure out how to get things right. And when you started in 2002, 2003, was it a gradual growth to success, or did you hit success and then hit the bed and then somehow recover?
Well, I'm a procrastinator. I am a world-class procrastinator, but at least I know that about myself.
Right.
So one of the things I do is I love a quote that I came up with just a couple years ago. Is I design my day in such a way that procrastination cannot play. And so I purposely schedule a lot of my meetings in that for first thing in the morning. Why? Because if I'm committed to someone else, I'm getting up. But if I leave it till 10 or 11, because I haven't had to work for a lot of years, I'll sleep in. And I choose that. That's not the life I want. So when I was becoming a trainer, I happened to be the first trainer for a gentleman by the name of T. Harbecker, company called Peak Potentials, and his first training was called Millionaire Mind Intensive. It was the course that changed my life and my wife's life. And so I became his first protege. And when I proved that someone else could teach other than him, his concepts, all of a sudden the world exploded open for us. And I took a ridiculous, because I knew to get good as a trainer, I had to practice. And in school, I hated studying, but I knew this is what I wanted to do. So people said I was stupid because I took a ridiculous one-year contract with them that here's what his negotiation was. Robert, if I don't use you, you still get paid. But if I use you, you get paid. And I knew it was a stupid low offer, but I took the deal because I knew the moment he signed on the line, he would use the heck out of me.
Of course.
And in my first year, I did 49 full-on trainings, multiple days. My staff were ending up making more per training than I was. But what did it give me? Practice. The one thing that most people in a new skill forget to do. And I knew that if I was going to be good, I had to practice. So I had no choice but to be practicing day in, day out, day in, day out. And at the same time, I was training other trainers. And there's 3 keys for people. Learn something, do it, then teach it. Because when you teach it, you go to a whole new level of understanding. And so at the same time I'm learning, I'm 6 times a year teaching a 5-day program on how to do what I'm doing to 300 people at a time. And so I'm just ingraining. And so I was blessed that things went really, really well. But because I overlived it and I wasn't taking care of me, when I stepped back in late 2008, I was burnt out. I was totally burnt out. You know, the herniated disc in my L4, L5 that had to go through 2 surgeries. And the only reason it was 2, man, is because after 6 weeks in bed, not being able to move before my first surgery, I went into the hospital at 7 a.m. It was a day surgery. They took out over 70% or 50% of my disc doing a microdiscectomy. I walked out at 1 p.m. standing straight. I hadn't done that in months, feeling so great. I didn't listen to the doctor. 3 weeks later, I re-herniated the same disc. And yeah, we have a saying in parts of Canada, it only takes a few kicks with a frozen muckluck before I get it. I woke up from that second surgery, said, I'm not going through that again. I'll do whatever the doctor tells me to do and whatever my wife tells me to do to get my health back. And so for me, that was a crashing point because I went from being on top of the world. Everybody wanted to know me. Everybody wanted to have me on their stages to all of a sudden I can't move. And you know how many I found out who the true friends were.
Yeah.
How many people I never heard from because I wasn't the person on the stage making them money. It's an interesting thing.
And it's kind of a kick in the dick, but yet also it's liberating to know who your 5 are. So I tell people all the time.
Yes, I love that about your show. The 5, yes.
I have my 5. And I have a very small group I have acquaintances, I have friendships, and then I have my 5. Yeah. And I'm okay with putting you in your boxes. Like people know that they're in my 5 or not in my 5. And it doesn't mean I don't love and care about you. It doesn't mean we're not tight. It just means I'm not asking you to dig a body and not ask why. Dig a hole for a body. Like that's the difference. I think when you know where people fit, and I think 2020 was a year for a lot of people to find out who their acquaintances are, who the users were, who the acquaintances are, who the friends are, and who their 5 are. And I think knowing that, while it sometimes is a kick in the dick right in the beginning, I think it actually is liberating and freeing.
It is. Because you get to see through the falseness.
Yes.
And you get to see, the guy I want to introduce you to, he's one of the guys that, him and I, and actually while we're talking, he's texted me because we connect, we're just, how you doing, brother? And if I have something going on, I know I can message him. He'll get instantly on the phone. I can scream, yell, shout. He doesn't take it personally. When we're done, he goes, are you done? And just for me to release it. And I'm there for him the same way. And that's it. Like when I heard that on listening to your episodes and you talk about the 5, I'm like, I never thought of it that way about digging somewhere in the body, but that's it.
We got to be a twisted fuck like me, who's seen more death and destruction more than more people should. That's just where my brain goes. Like I've compartmented a lot of stuff, and a cop in military, you know, when you're in, we're some twisted son of a bitches, and we'll take the most sickest, disturbing moment and turn it into a comedy. That's just how we manage. So for me, when I say, you know, it's not my best friend Toby, I'm moving, you know, I'm buying, I settled on 37 acres in Missouri, and it's my best friend Toby from the Army, and he's my leader of my 5. You know, we love each other. I mean, deep, passionate. We love one another, and I would do anything for him. I would die for him, and I would do it for his family. And while that is the fact, the reality is it's so much easier and way cooler to say, yeah, he's the guy that I call first when I need a shovel, a tarp, some lye, and a hole dug without anybody asking why. That sounds way better than I love him passionately, right? So, but it's true. Like, and his wife will say, my wife will say, you know, I think you two love each other more than you love us. I'm like, it's a fact. There's not a question. I love my wife immensely, but he's my best friend. Like and my wife's my best friend on the chick side, but you know, like he's my guy. He's the person I was put on this earth to be with, as like my right arm. So
I hear that.
When you know that, there's just something cool and liberating about that. There's nothing wrong with not being forever in my life.
Yeah, I totally agree. Now, I will let you know I've got a hard stop in about 8 minutes.
No worries. We're good.
But you and I we could talk for hours.
I agree. Well, let's make sure we hit the key points for you, because I don't want to miss an opportunity for you to be able to put out what you're doing, what your book, your training seminars, and all that kind of stuff. And then when we have a couple minutes in the end, we'll shoot the shit a little bit more. But tell people what's the big thing that's evolved in your life in 2020 now, manifesting itself in 2021.
Now I'm writing my new book called The Authority Key: How to Unlock and Open the Doors to Success. And it's working on, here's a practical, because here's a question, and Matt, you've seen this a lot. You know, people that can have less experience and less knowledge, but yet they seem to make more money. Why? Because they're seen as the authority and you're not. And so whether the person's in a job or a business, I give them the practical skills, how to become an authority, but then I also work on the inside of what's sabotaging you, what's holding you back from, you know, because making money is one thing, keeping it totally different. And so I work on both sides of that with the Authority Key. And so we're in the process of writing it right now, looking to, by the end of the year, you know, with COVID delays, I want to have it released. And so my first book, Success Left a Clue, which is 6 powerful steps to create the life you want. What I'm doing, and I love to give it as a gift in the ebook version, that, you know, people that are listening, they can actually go and download it as my gift to them. But it's a workbook. It's not a book you read and then just, oh, that was nice, and put it aside. Every one of the steps, I give them action steps. Before you read the next chapter, you do this. Because unfortunately, and it's step number 3, you have to take action. Most people just don't. They go, oh, this is great. And it's like, well, what actions are you taking? Oh, I'm supposed to do something.
Right.
Right. So I love to allow people to get access to that and just enjoy it, because it was the book that took me 16 years to write. And it's really me in a book. It's my humor, which is warped. It's my aerodynamicness, like you and I, said we have in common. I love how a friend put it today when they said, oh, you got the same hairstyle. He goes, yeah, but I find I walk about 20% quicker than anybody else.
Green line, aerodynamic.
Yeah. So that's kind of where I'm at. What I'm doing right now is loving my training center being built, looking forward to being able to have people who have a message that want to learn how to be authentic and be present on a stage, whether it's virtually or in front of a live audience. I love to take high-end people who are already trainers, just tweak them, enhance them to be that person they truly are. Get rid of the falseness. Be you. Good, bad, ugly, be you, so the audience sees who they're really learning from.
you brought something up I think is real quick that we could hit on is the 2020, if it did nothing else, it ended interpersonal communication in a present sense, right?
Mhm.
People who rely on energy from a room, rely on energy to be on, had to learn how to not rely on that and
Yep.
have that energy from a virtual space. Did you find it difficult personally, and then also to teach people how to make that transition to the virtual side in order to maintain their business and to continue to practice their craft? Did you find any difficulty with that?
Oh no, it was a transition. Absolutely, it was a total reinvent for me. And luckily, because I'm always a student, I will never quit learning. I transition quickly, and something as simple as right now, I've got my computer up and I'm sitting in a high director's chair. But when I'm doing a training, this chair is set back. I'm standing. I've got my camera up. I'm moving. My studio, I'll actually have a stage where I'll have multiple cameras so I can do and move around the stage so I can get that energy better. Because sitting down, and it can get, if I'm doing a 5-hour training, holding the energy for 5 hours, it gets monotonous. So yeah, I went through a lot of adjusting to make it work.
And the reason I asked that is because having my son who's senior in high school, bad enough when he gets senioritis to begin with, but having had half of 2020 his junior year and half of his senior year as virtual was really. And now, granted, he's going to ROTC, University of Maryland, full ride, very smart kid, but he truly did stop learning.
Yeah.
Because the person delivering the messages wasn't able to convey the information in the same way they would have had they been in a classroom. And
yeah, absolutely.
I think that's a real thing that people are having to deal with. And I think having someone who is adept at training and coaching and getting people and pointing that out, like it's a real thing. And if nobody's telling you suck as a virtual trainer or as a virtual teacher, you're just going to keep doing the same shit over and over again, expecting that everything's fine. And if you didn't have, not every kid is my son who has the ability. He's kind of like me. He's a bullshit artist. He can retain information long enough to dump it into a test and then forget it if he needs to. And that's the game of public education in America.
Oh God, there's a whole nother show you and I could do together.
So, but having someone who's got the wherewithal and the understanding and the adaptability, because in the military it's improvise, adapt, and overcome. And if you don't have those three things, if you're not willing to sometimes make shit up, adapt to the environment that you're in, and then find a way to overcome it to be better, you're going to get lost and you're going to be stagnant. You're going to be stuck. And I truly appreciate the fact that you're able to make that pivot and then help others in your training environment to do the same. Because I don't think it's necessarily going away completely.
No, right, exactly. I totally agree. It's a whole new normal. A whole new normal. And
whether we like it or not. Well, brother, I truly do appreciate it. This was a great conversation, as I kind of expected it would be, based on our emailing back and forth and the 5 minutes we spent before I hit record. I appreciate what you're doing. I appreciate you definitely are authentic. Your body language matches your vocal intonation and your facial expression. So I think it's a rare gift to truly know oneself and then to share that with others. And the fact that you're helping people become better at that and identify their true self and who they are and be authentic and true to themselves. People don't recognize how hard it is to be inauthentic for a long period of time.
Right.
We all have an adaptive personality, right? That we can go to in short periods of time. And, my adaptive personality says that I can be a fucking whirlwind at a party, right? I can light a party on fire and be the center of attention and hold a room and do all that. But I got about a 2-hour window before that turns into a shit show, because then my authentic self is get the fuck out.
Yeah.
I don't want to be around all these people. And it's hard to be not you. And if you can get people to realize how much more effort they're spending being not themselves,
Oh my goodness, right?
that sounds like a winner, right? That sounds like a great business. So I think you're onto something.
Well, and I'm looking forward to being more at home, right? Because family's important. Family's important.
And I'll leave the website and everything's gonna be in the show notes. Successleftaclue.com, right?
Yep.
And everybody, please go buy his book, get the ebook. When the new one comes out, get that. Make sure if you're a speaker, you're a trainer, or you're anybody who's doing anything publicly on a stage presenting, give Robert a call and set something up with him. And when that 1,500 square foot training facility is ready, we can go up to the land where the weather changes every 5 minutes and enjoy it.
That's it.
Well, hang tight. Don't go anywhere. We're going to talk off air for a minute or two. But everybody, thank you again for tuning in and listening or watching this episode of the 2 Dates and a Dash podcast. Once again, successleftaclue.com to learn more about Robert and what he's doing. MattCubbler.com for me. You can get the copy of the book, A Brother's Love. Make sure you go to my YouTube channel, hit the subscribe and the little bell dingy thing under Matt Cubbler. And everybody, just remember that you are a gift. No matter what you may think about yourself, there's something about you that someone else will find value in. And if you're not sharing that gift, you're robbing someone of that gift and that value. So thank you, everybody. God bless, and go out and be kind to one another.